Really excited to have our beautiful partner, Jack.org, to present about the professional learning opportunities available for teachers, but also for students, and really looking at the programming that they have for free for schools to take advantage of. And I know that Jack.org and myself have worked together. They did the 2 keynote speakers at our Youth Mental Health Symposium, and the reviews and the feedback is beyond exceptional. I have been a part of some of the other training as well, and I will say that this is a partner that I always enjoy working with, and I'm very happy to introduce Aisha and Hillary, and I'm going to hand it right over to them because I know it's at the end of a very, very long day. So thank you so much for being here. This will be recorded if you can't stay for the entire session, and I will hand it over to Aisha and Hillary.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to see so many faces and people popping in also from different regions. We are really excited to obviously talk through a bunch of stuff that Jack.org has available, but we also hopefully want to leave some time at the end for you to ask any questions that you might have about our programming, any ways that you would like to collaborate with us. So first and foremost, we just wanted to welcome you to the session and say thank you so much for giving up some of the time out of your very busy schedules to listen to us talk for a little bit. And before we begin, we just want to introduce ourselves as well. Like Denise said, we've been working together for quite some time. I am Asia Twaher, we using she, her pronouns, and then I also am the program's partnerships lead at Jack.org, which means I support with all things kind of partnerships, obviously, but also just collaborations across the country with anything programmatically related. And I'll pass it to Hillary to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. My name's Hillary. I oversee the Francophone portfolio for everything Jack Talks partnership initiatives. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, and I think we can maybe just jump right into the next slide. Asia? Thanks. So as we begin today's event, I think it's really important to start by recognizing the Indigenous territory that we are on, and that Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and treaty lands of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Seeing that the event is virtual, we all come from a little bit different places, so I encourage you to take some time to reflect and acknowledge the land that you might find yourselves on. Currently, I'm in the city of Moncton in New Brunswick as well, a place that's very rich in history, culture, natural beauty, but it's also the untreated, traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqet, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq people. As a national charity, it's super imperative that Jack.org acts as a caretaker for these lands and practices reciprocity with them. And we acknowledge the history and ongoing injustices that they have faced as a result of colonization, which has caused significant harm to their cultures, languages, and ways of life. So let us embrace in the principles of inclusivity, diversity, and unity. May we continue to honor the land of the Indigenous people who have been its steward for centuries. And together, I really hope we can work towards a future of understanding, collaboration, and justice for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to completely echo all of those things that Hillary just said. I think I might be the only one in this virtual room who's not in the Atlantic, but I do also want to acknowledge that I am in the city of Mississauga, which is covered by 5 treaties, most notably Treaty 14, which was signed by the British Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation in 1806, and after which the access to farming, hunting, fishing lands was completely denied, even though it was promised in the treaty that they signed. So definitely want to be continuing to think about the histories of the lands that we're on and working towards more equitable futures. And as for today's session, just passing it to Hillary to go through exactly what we'll be chatting through.
Yeah, so for some of you, it may be the first time that you're learning about jack.org, or maybe you've already heard about a few of our different programs, but the point of today is really go over all the different programs that we offer. So there would be Jack Chapters, we have Jack Talks, we have a few digital resources that are available to you as well as educators. And then, like Asya said at the beginning, we'll be super happy to go over any questions you may have about the programming, about the organization itself, and see how we can help you as educators.
My fellow graduates, today, as we look to the future together, I'm filled with that feeling of hope. We're ready to take on the world and leave our mark. And tomorrow seems full of possibilities, full of joy, excitement, pride, and potential. So take it all in and remember this moment, because everything's about to change. And while some might say that these are the best days of our lives, I'd like to believe our best days are yet to come.
So the reason I played this video is just to get you a kind of an overall understanding of the type of programming that or really the type of audience that we're looking to reach at jack.org. This is actually a very recent video that we put together for our brand refresh, and we're just trying to essentially emphasize the fact that we know youth are struggling quite a lot and have been for some time with their mental health. And oftentimes they don't necessarily have the knowledge or confidence to seek out the supports that they might need while going through some sort of mental health struggle or crisis. Although we aren't necessarily crisis responders, we want to encourage youth to feel comfortable with their own kind of mental health, to talk about mental health, reduce the stigma, and then feel that they can support one another within community. So
My fellow graduates,
don't know why I did that, but yes, so that's what we want to emphasize. And the first program that we do that with is the Jack Chapters program. So what chapters are, broadly speaking, are groups of young people across the country, mostly in high schools, post-secondary institutions, and community like groups and settings, who work year-round to identify problems within their community that they want to address as it comes to mental health. As a result of addressing things in relation to a particular group's specific community, every chapter ends up looking quite different. You might have a chapter in downtown Toronto who's very focused on access to healthcare and wait times for mental health professionals, where some other chapter in kind of like rural Alberta might be more interested in just reducing the stigma and introducing mental health vocabulary as a concept. So we provide sort of a lot of guidance to be able to address whatever it is that a particular chapter needs for their community. And in your cases, maybe you also know a little bit more about your specific school community outside of the neighborhood as at large, that you might be able to guide a group of young people to understand better like what type of dialogue makes the most sense to begin, and what type of research or benefit that they are looking to have within the year as they run their chapter. The three things that we want to emphasize that chapters get include guidance from members or staff members at jack.org, training to better understand sort of the basics of what mental health is and why it's a different concept than mental illness and why it's important, as well as funding. As they've completed training, they're allowed access to a certain amount of funding from jack.org that they just have to request at any time, with a little explanation of what exactly they're looking to use that funding for, and it's sort of dispersed as needed. And I want to really emphasize that these are some of the benefits that chapters get, because we've heard that there's quite a few community groups that already exist in some schools and in some communities, where it might be a committee or a club that's focused on health or mental health, or kind of like, broadly speaking, similar concepts. And in those contexts, we don't think that necessarily anything needs to be overhauled, or that club needs to be taken away from anyone if it's already an existing concept. But turning that committee into a chapter through the training will just allow access to additional guidance that hopefully will be able to support not only the youth, but also the educators who are involved, as well as, like I said, the funding and training. And we'll, at the end of this presentation, we'll also share some links of what you can do for next steps if you're interested in any of those.
All right, so we know as educators, sometimes you can be the biggest ally for students, either noticing in your classroom that their behavior is a little bit different. You're noticing that your students are just acting different than their normal selves. And sometimes with Jack Talks, we can help teachers bring awareness to their classroom if they'd like to request one, so that the youth in their classroom can be better taught on the basics of mental health, understand what it looks like, who does it affect, etc. So Jack Talks, to keep it very simple, they're mental health presentations that are delivered by 2 trained youth speakers who will share their personal stories on dealing with a struggle related to mental health. And they'll also be sharing mental health knowledge. So it's a great place to start a conversation on mental health. It's really through peer-to-peer education that the speakers inform young people about the foundations, the strategies on how to take care of their own mental health, but also help someone that might be struggling or might be in a crisis. So Jack Talk offerings can be done through 3 different avenues. They're all completely free, but the first one would be on a live stream, so similar to what we're doing right now on Zoom, Teams. We have Google Meets as well that's available, where you can just have a virtual Jack Talk. You'll have 2 speakers on your screen, and then you can have your speakers log in individually, or you can share the whole classroom, and they'll be delivering the content on mental health knowledge, sharing their personal stories, and the rest. You could also have in person. I know since COVID, everyone's been very happy to have in-person talks as well. So if you'd like to have 2 guest speakers come into your classroom or into the school auditorium for the whole school to see, we can definitely try and figure ways to make that happen. And if you're a teacher that likes to have more of a hands-on approach, that likes to be a little bit more in charge of the content and how it's delivered, we also have the pre-recorded talk. So it's very easy to request. You just go on our website, you request the link, and you'll get an email with the link containing the video, the content that we can go over. And this gives you a bit more control on the content. You can elaborate it or facilitate it as much as you'd like, or as little as you'd like as well. So for the offerings is very much, like I said, peer-to-peer. It's youth talking to other youth about mental health, completely free of charge, and you'll be matched according to the region. So where speakers are to your location, so you can get speakers that might be close to you. You could be matched to speakers that maybe are linked a little bit more to your demographics, etc. We also offer the Jack Talks for Indigenous youth, so it's more of a Indigenous lens on mental health. There's a video portion including the social determinants from an Indigenous perspective. It's a virtual live sharing circle as well, so we adopt the practices from the Indigenous culture, and it's also administered or facilitated by an Indigenous facilitator as well. And what's super fun about the Jack Talks is that we created them so that they are modular. So you can have a Jack Talk on 1 or 2 modules based off a theme or topic you like to dive deeper on. So if you want to focus on mental health basics, that could be one module. The second one is how to be there for others. So We talk about the 5 golden rules on how to be there for a friend. And then we also have the third module of being there for ourselves, which is very popular at the moment, setting boundaries, how to take care of yourself. So you can have a combination of 1 or 2. And what's new is that you can also weave in some themes into the modules. So, in the space of mental health, there's new themes that preoccupy youth, whether it's academic pressure, which is very big. There's social media that takes a really big portion of youth's lives as well. So we can customize the content and the talk according to your audience and what your students need. So for the speaker program, like I said, there'll be the speakers that deliver the talks to your students. Once your students or other youth that you may know reach the age of 18, they can themselves lead a JAC talk after going through our speaker training. So it's a super fantastic volunteering opportunity where the youth can have a greater impact in their community if they're not going through the chapters, where they go to schools, they deliver the content in mental health, and they just help bring awareness towards mental health for other youth. So the training is composed of 2 different components, just the written portion and a verbal portion where they go through the content, they write their personal stories to make sure it's safe. They develop their own land acknowledgement as well. And the whole training is going to be overviewed by a program coordinator, such as myself or my lovely coworkers. And it runs primarily through the summer each year. And we can assist with training according to their needs or what, if we have a low speaker count on the Atlantic region, for example, then if we get new speakers that are requested throughout the summer that live in the Atlantic, then we'll happily take them on as well. It roughly takes about 6 to 8 weeks to complete. So I would say about 5 hours per week. And once it's done, you're done your training for the summer, you're ready to offer talks. It can be offered sooner, so it's very flexible according to the youth, because we understand it's a volunteer position. They might have work. They might also still be doing studies during the summer. And, there's so much going on in youth's lives. So it's very flexible, and they can get guidance depending on what their needs are. So we also offer personalized coaching or coaching calls, we call them, where they can just hop on a video chat with a program coordinator. We also offer an honorarium program. So once they complete the training, they receive an honorarium, and then they receive the second portion of the honorarium at the end of the year. So there is some kind of incentive for them to thank them for all the work that they're putting in. And for the youth that really like traveling, there are also some travel opportunities that are completely covered by JAC.org. But yeah, let's say there's a talk opportunity in Bathurst. I know we have someone from Bathurst. We might not have a lot of speakers in that area, but we can definitely send some speakers up if there's any available, and it'll be completely covered by JAC.org. And like that, it gives a little bit more of diverse activities in rural communities where I know sometimes in-person activities can be very limited.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking to diversify as much as possible. And one of the other ways that we are approaching that kind of uh, thought pattern is by having digital resources for folks who want to kind of have a little bit of more self-paced control over the content that they're consuming, if a talk or the speaker program or a chapter isn't available to them for any given reason. The 2 main ones that we'll talk about here today are Be There and EdHub, which hopefully the EdHub will sound at least a little bit familiar to some of you. The Be There kind of program or resource uses the Be There Golden Rules, which Hilary just actually mentioned really briefly when she was talking about the talks. And basically these rules are, as the name suggests, exactly how to be there for someone who you might be noticing is going through a struggle. We have noticed that there are a lot of young people who have such an intense passion for wanting to help their peers or even just help themselves. But once it comes to a situation where they're actually noticing a change that they think should be addressed, they don't always exactly know what to do. So we want to make sure that they're not overwhelming themselves by taking on too much responsibility, but they are actually getting the support that they need to be able to address the concerns that they might be facing. In fact, one of the golden rules I really wanted to emphasize here when it comes to like not overwhelming someone is the know your role rule. It's one of the like golden rules that I like to emphasize the most, because when you have youth who are so passionate and so interested in helping one another, I think it's really important to emphasize that at the end of the day, like, you are a friend or a coworker or, you know, a peer of some kind, and there might be some situation where reaching out to a trusted adult, like one of the you folks in this room, or reaching out to emergency services is necessary. But finding out exactly how to distinguish those situations is really important. And one of the ways that we help folks to distinguish all of those situations is through the certificate, the Be There certificate, which is available online. Hopefully some of you have heard about that as well. And it's completely self-paced modules that if you were to sit down and do it all together in one sitting, it should take about 3 hours or so, but you can split it up and spread it out as much as you would like, as much as needed for your schedule. And at the end of it, you can get a certificate that actually shows the work that you put into the Be There certificate to be able to prepare yourself for those tasks that might come up in terms of supporting someone with mental health. And this is something that, like, youth, and thank you so much, Hilary, for putting that in the chat. So for anyone who's curious, you can go ahead and like take a look at that like anytime you need to. And this is something that youth can do very much to support themselves or young people, but it's also something parents can do, teachers, any other type of educator. This is a certificate that we'll really like highly recommend for pretty much anyone. And then the other version is the EdHub. The other resource is the EdHub, which is more specifically fine-tuned for the educator experience. So this isn't one that we necessarily recommend for like directly to young people, but for the educators who are trying to have these like very difficult conversations in some cases with them. And what it actually looks like is it's a comprehensive, very like free online service that allows you to look at lesson plans essentially about mental health. And you can adjust them as needed, and you can find ways to also upload new ones, or at least work together with us to be able to share educator resources with other educators across the country. But it also is able to be changed, each lesson plan, to fit different timelines, learning styles, and topics of interest as relevant to your classroom. For one teacher who's maybe teaching health, they might focus it on mental health as a kind of component of the larger component of health. And some other teacher who is teaching kind of like psychology might focus a little bit more on the science behind mental health. But all of the resources are just to encourage that conversation and provide a shared vocabulary about what it means to be talking about mental health. And that is all of our programs and resources. And yeah, all of those are also posted, as Janine said, in the chat on the COE website, but we wanted to just leave some space for any questions that might be coming up at this point.
I'm just going to pop in real quickly. I know the educators that are on, it's very important for us to mention that the Department of Education is completely supportive of both of those programs, but also all the JAC.org programs. And this is the reason why we became partners. We looked at curriculum connections, especially with personal wellness, but also mental health can be covered in any subject, as we know. But certainly we have dug a little bit deeper into the EdHub. I would highly recommend taking a look at the EdHub and what that looks like. We worked with their creators to give some feedback. I know some teachers gave some feedback. So certainly educators that are on right now, if that's something that you're interested in, we would love to get feedback from you on whether the resources are useful. I do know that the Be There certificate is something that we started to offer in the summer during summer learning weeks for students it was just right after COVID, because we wanted to offer some programming for students in the summer. And I do know that a few of the students reached out to me to say that it was extremely beneficial. But something you can do with your students, and maybe you wanted to have like a full mental health day, and they could actually take that certificate as part of their day. And we've talked about including that in the Youth Mental Health Symposium for next year as well. So beautiful programs, beautiful people. If you do have questions, certainly stay on and ask questions, because these two are a wealth of knowledge. And I had no idea, as an educator in our system for 18 years, I had heard about jack.org, but I didn't really know what they did until I became the Center of Excellence for Health, and then did a little digging. And certainly there are a lot of opportunities to have free resources. So for teachers, that's like, but also free keynote speakers, free youth speaking to youth. And when we did our feedback survey from last year and the year before, when we had the jack.org folks come present, that was what we received back from our youth, was that they really were able to relate to the youth, and they were speaking their language, which is so nice to hear. So I'm going to be quiet. If anybody has any questions, you can place them in the chat, or you can just put your camera on and raise your hand.
I'd also just like to add that our resources are available in French as well. So if you happen to be a French immersion teacher looking for resources in French in your classroom, we definitely can offer that as well. Yeah, but if you have any questions.
Hilary, is the Ed Hub in French as well?
I believe it has been translated already.
I think that they're kind of going through the resources sort of one by one. So some of them should be available in French, but possibly not all of them yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not all, but the website is already available in French. Some resources are already on. What's really fantastic about the Ed Hub is that if you have an overwhelming week and you kind of just, I need something on mental health, you have all the activities, the lesson plan, the worksheets available to you. So you just print everything out if you need, and it's already like your day's planned basically for the lesson. I see we have a question. I can't see who it is.
So go ahead, Shannon. Sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
I'm just wondering, sorry, my colleague came in. I don't know if I missed this, but if we wanted to book a guest speaker, how would we go about it?
That's a great question. So it's super easy. If you just go on our website, jack.org, which I think I can just pull up right here, unless Asya, I think it's already linked in our PowerPoint. Here you go. I'll link it right in the chat. Oh, Asya already did it. Wonderful. Yeah, so you just go on our website and you request to book a talk. It's going to give us a notification in our system. And every morning there's going to be a program coordinator who's assigned to your region. So right now it's me for the East Coast. I'll see it in my reports in the morning, and then I'll send out an email directly to whoever requested it, just saying, hey, thanks for requesting the talk. Let's hop on a virtual meeting and we can discuss all the specifics of your request, in person, virtual, what theme would you like, what module, etc.
Okay. And what is the time frame between the request and the actual talk?
That's another good question. So if you would like one in person, ideally we like to have 6 weeks notice, just in case we need to coordinate travel, speakers are available in the first hand. I have already planned a talk within 2 weeks notice, but it's never guaranteed, right? So
yeah,
we're in person, 6 weeks ideally.
Okay.
If it's virtual, I'm flexible, right? I can reach out to speakers in Alberta if I have to. If it's a talk in New Brunswick, they can still deliver the content.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just going to add to that really quickly, because I'm sure some folks are going to jump off. So before you jump off, we are planning 2 virtual sessions in May with jack.org, which of course virtual is not probably the best option for a session, but we did want to offer it provincially to like the folks at Graham and Ann and all of those folks, so that everybody can have an opportunity. Hilary, I'm going to get you to speak about the 2 sessions that we have opted to plan for that day. And you will get the information in the upcoming events, but that will be coming out. It's the last week of May. And there will be a session in the morning and a session in the afternoon. And you folks can sign up and register students for both, or you can just go to one. So I'll just be quiet. And Hillary, if you want to just speak to what we decided for the programming for those talks.
Yeah, thank you, Deneen. So that is a great question. Let me pull up my report right now because we have so many, and it's mental health week coming up. So we have a lot of talk requests, which if you'd be interested in having a talk in your classroom or in your school, I highly recommend that you put in the request as soon as possible so we can make that happen. Yeah, but the upcoming virtual talks that we have set up are currently set for May 27th. The one in the morning, so 11:30 a.m. It's about 45 minutes. It's going to be offered in English. And I think the theme that we had elaborated was mental health basics. So the morning would just be mostly understanding what's mental health, who does it affect, what does it look like. We talk about the dual spectrum of mental health as well. So good basic knowledge if it's your first time. I know there's a lot of schools that have newcomers as well. So this is a good opportunity for them to get a better understanding of what mental health is. And then the second talk we have is at 2 o'clock, which is also another 45-minute talk. And this one we had decided on the module of mental health basics as well. So if you cannot participate to the first one, you can definitely participate to the second one. It gives you a good idea of what the JAG talk looks like. Let's say you really like the mental health basics talk that'll be happening on May 27th, and you would like another one in your classroom that's maybe a little bit more on being there for others or being there for ourselves. We can definitely do that. The content varies and we can customize it according to your specific students as well.
Awesome.
I think that was
Thank
everything, Janine.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I know that hopefully that gives an option of even maybe an introduction to the JAC.org presentation so that because May is extremely busy with Mental Health Month, you're both shaking your head like yes. But certainly this could just be an introduction to what a JAC.org session looks like and feels like. And maybe, you know, if you're an educator and just want to sign into that and maybe not bring students this year, that's fine, but it might open doors for next year, which is really the hope as well. We do recommend and there will be specifics shared on our website about the registration. We do recommend that you have an ESS support team on hand to make sure that students are supported at all times, which they are in schools anyways, but making sure that the ESS teams in every school is aware that a talk is happening, because that's really important for us to set up any supports that are needed for students after or within the presentation. Any other questions?
I can just jump on while folks are still thinking. Feel free to put your comments or questions in the chat or come off mute. But if you need to rush to something else and just sort of think of a question sometime later in the day or later in the week, you can also email us directly and ask whatever the questions that you might have in mind. Mine is hopefully super simple to remember. It's just my name at JAC.org. So Asia at JAC. Exactly. Hillary is putting them in the chat as a wonderful colleague that she is. So just Asia at JAC.org and Hillary at JAC.org if you have any more sort of specific questions about how to get involved or, you know, what next steps could look like for starting a chapter or getting your students to apply to become speakers if they're over the age of 18 or any of the above that we've discussed today. Feel free to email us afterwards and if you're in a rush at this moment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it to you both. And also thank you educators for coming, especially Kara from Nova Scotia. I really appreciate you being here. Lovely to have somebody from Nova Scotia. And certainly if you would want further information, please feel free to reach out to myself or Hillary or to Aisha. And without further ado, I am going to stop the recording, but we're going to stay on the call just for a few more minutes. Sometimes people like to ask questions after the recording stops. So I'm stopping the recording. So this is Deneen Diamond saying thank you so much to jack.org for a beautiful professional learning session for our educators in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and have a beautiful day.